All right, well, it's 11 o'clock, and so we will go ahead and get started. And then as other people join, I'll just admit them in.
Great.
Hi, everyone. I am Alina Mitchell, the LX specialist for the Jacobs Institute, and I'll be facilitating today's webinar. I'd like to welcome you to our Ed Innovation Expert webinar with Dr. Katie Martin. She is one of our dynamic instructors for the Professional Learning Certificate offered by the Institute at the University of San Diego. And on our screen, you can see our beautiful campus, which I wish I was there today. We are happy to have you with us, Katie.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
You're welcome. Well, before Dr. Martin begins her presentation, I'd like to share some background information about the certificate itself. And I'm happy that we have within our session today some students who have already enrolled in the certificate
Oh,
program.
great.
Yay. This program is designed for professionals interested in the emerging domain of ed innovation and the career opportunities within this space. Our research at the Jacobs Institute has identified 3 areas of ed innovation, which includes learning experience or LX design and emerging technology, educational innovation, leadership, and edupreneurship. So within this certificate program, you can choose to focus on one of these areas with your course selection, or you can choose to take courses across all 3. And I've posted the link in our chat for you if you have not enrolled and you would like to explore more information about the certificate. If you go to the link in the chat, it will take you to our overview and take you to everything that you need to sign up. So again, today we have with us Dr. Katie Martin, who will be teaching the Learner-Centered Innovation course, which will be offered this coming July through August 21st. Dr. Martin is going to introduce herself and give you a course preview followed by a Q&A. And honestly, if any time you have a question throughout the presentation, if you just type it within the chat, Dr. Martin will address it, and I'll also help to make sure that all of the questions are being answered as we go through the webinar. So again, thank you for joining us, and I'll turn it over to Katie.
Thank you, Alina. Super excited to be here again and glad to see some different faces. If you want to turn on your cameras, please feel free to do so, and I'd love to see faces. If not, and you want to just remain anonymous in your homes, I 100% understand. I also am investing in many more sweatpants, as that's the attire that's more necessary these days as things are changing. I wanted to kick off before I started sharing, and if you can, I wanted just to, one, have people share your name and who you are, and if you could just share one unexpected, hi Mary, benefit of the quarantine. I know there are lots of challenges we're going to discuss, but I am always a fan of kind of thinking about setting things off on a positive tone. So, Mary, would you mind, since you turned on your camera, see your beautiful face, to just introduce yourself and share an unexpected benefit of quarantine?
Sure. Well, thanks for hosting this. Mary, I'm a superintendent in suburban Chicago and used to work in Elmhurst, Katie, where you visited last year. Yes. So I think an unexpected thing, so as a first year superintendent in a brand new district, it can be hard for the parent community to get to know you. But through all the different types of communication I've been doing with families during this, I feel like our community has become even more connected.
Great. I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you for sharing. Is there another volunteer? I hate calling on people.
I can chime in.
Oh, go ahead, Alina, and then Patty can join us next.
Awesome. Well, I'd say that one, I guess, unexpected positive out of this situation, well, 2 actually, is that 1, I've been able to save on gas money because I haven't really had anywhere to go. And I'm happy to spend some time with my mother. I decided to shelter in place with her, so it's been nice.
Great. Patty, you want to join in?
Sure. I'm in Richmond, Virginia, at an independent day school, and we have been on this remote journey for, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks now. And we actually sent home devices at the very last minute, all the way from first grade to 12th grade, which was a little surprised to do that with first graders, and it's been a challenge, um, mostly for their parents, I think. Um, but the pleasant surprise has been that people that have not been using technology in their classroom as much as we might have hoped that they had been in the past are pleasantly surprised by some of the tools that they have either retaught them or they are learning, and are saying, when we come back to school in the fall, crossing their fingers, that we're not sure that's going to happen, but they're going to plan to use some of the things that they have learned. So that's a silver lining for me.
That's great. Thanks, Patty. Anybody else want to jump in and share? You don't even have to turn on your video. You can also just use your audio if you want to jump in and share. I'll give a few moments.
This is Lisa. I'm the executive director of the Jacobs Institute. I think one of the big benefits for me personally and professionally is that it's given me an opportunity to pull back and reflect on what's important, and how to best move forward. And we spend a lot of time working with the current system, and when the whole system gets disrupted and you have to pull back and think, okay, that doesn't work anymore at all. How are we going to do it moving forward? It almost, I think it gave a clean slate to a lot of educators who have wanting or been trying to do things in new ways and maybe didn't have the space to do it. And I feel like it's giving a lot of space to create, invent, and I'm seeing so much creativity among teachers and schools, and that I wasn't seeing before. So I think that's been really amazing.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. Mariella, I saw you turn on your camera. Do you share with us?
Sure. Let me turn on my camera. So, hi everyone, I am Marilla. I am the Dean of College of Ed. I am from Guatemala City. I work for Universidad del Valle de Guatemala. And an unexpected outcome for this situation is I really like and enjoy see how the people, the professor is growing up related to technology and how they feel more comfortable with that. Mm-hmm. Also, for me, is a time for slowing down also and to rethink many things about what is the most important thing, because we have to back to essentials, no? So I think it's time to do it.
Yeah. Thank you. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. All right. I'm going to wait just a second and see if anyone else wants to jump in, and then. All right. I'm going to share my screen for a moment. Is that okay, Alina, if I share my screen?
Yes, it is.
Okay. If it lets me, there we go. All right. Can you guys see it?
Yes, we can.
Now you can? Great. Okay. So this quote is something that has resonated for me a lot lately. It was something I had been thinking about. So without order, nothing exists. And without chaos, nothing evolves. And so as we think about our world that we're in right now, this was always true. And we're always trying to think about order, right? In schools, it's like, especially as a superintendent leading schools, how do we make sure that everyone is safe and secure and we have order and kids learn what they're supposed to learn? And we need those things so that we can exist as systems. We have a long history that we all know well and good, that the traditions have been kept in place so that we could keep marching through, and they have been good in many ways to get people to go through school and graduate. And we've seen in the last 30 years or so that school is not necessarily designed to meet the needs of all of our learners, nor is it designed to create the innovative, creative thinkers that the world demands. So now more than ever, I think as many of you noted, the silver lining is there is a bit of chaos right now, a lot of chaos, right? There are many challenges that we are facing. And while I wouldn't wish this on anybody, the pain and the suffering and the loss that so many are experiencing, this rock bottom in a way that our world is experiencing, out of it, what are the opportunities to evolve and grow and create something new and better? And I think that what my silver lining is, and what gives me hope, is that they know there are leaders who are thinking about that. Not how to rebuild the status quo, but how in our new phase can we rebuild something better. And so in many ways, I've been sharing this, the evolving role of educators as we think about these shifts are much less about being the all-knowing and sharing content and managing a classroom full of kids. Whether we're remote, whether we're blended or actually face-to-face, our educators can be responsible for co-designing those powerful lessons with kids, with the community, really thinking about how to develop a community of learners. That's been something that has been really, really important in this world, is how do we not just connect between the teacher and the student, but how do we connect students? How do we connect them with their resources in their community, and then activate them to be their next best version of themselves, activate them to try and solve their own problems and really learn how to learn. One of the main challenges I hear from people is, how in the world, kids are not, if you see it on my board, actually, it's something written, this has shown a light on the passivity of students, right? And so much we have been able to put something on the board. We have been able to have kids fill in the blank. We've got them through the end of the unit, but we realize now, without us being there to guide them and pull them in some cases across the finish line, that many of our kids don't know how to learn independent of a teacher. They don't know how to find resources, and they don't know how to investigate problems when someone's not dragging them along. So how do we come alongside and partner with our students? And I think most important, and it should be the very top, this connector. How do we connect with them as individuals? How do we make sure they're safe and secure, and their emotional state of being is taken care of so that they can learn in powerful ways? So there's really great news coming out, like you've shared, that people have really started to think about these things. Yeah, Mary, go ahead.
So something that I think has been really interesting, we sent a survey out to our parents this morning to get some feedback on our remote learning plan and communication and how things are going. And one of the questions I asked was, has your child initiated learning a new skill or further developing a passion? And the answers I'm getting back are incredible. And I think it's going to be great to share with teachers so that they can see what more our kids can do when we put the learning in their hands.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because I think that on the flip side of seeing the passivity of students, we also see the ingenuity, right? Of being able to, like my kids and my husband built a treehouse. They had 2 weeks and they decided, it started with my son's like sketch drawing, and now is a full living thing that they slept in the other night. But that's because they had the opportunity and the space to try something out. And so when we talk about agency, people have said we have to define agency and kids don't know how to learn. And while that might be true in an academic sense, how do we leverage how they know how to investigate and solve problems and do things when they're truly motivated? So agency is not just about, going through the textbook, but it's also about motivation and purpose. And so finding more purpose in our schools, I think, is absolutely critical. So one of the things that I've shared, and I think it's even more relevant now, is we can't change who we serve. We can't change our kids. We can't change their home lives as much as we, would want to, but we can change how we serve them. And especially in this unstable and uncertain environment, we can think about what are the things that are most important? How do we prioritize? I'm not going to get through this whole unit. I'm not going to be able to, they're not going to be tested in ways that they were in the classroom. So how do we really elevate the skills, knowledge, and dispositions that are most critical and help kids to develop those? And Mary, I love that you did that survey. I would love to see it. I'm so excited. That's so cool. Because these are the things that we know are critical. In 2020, which is now, gosh, no one predicted that this would be now, but the World Economic Forum had shared that these skills would be the most beneficial for people in the workforce. Complex problem solving, critical thinking, creativity. Those are the skills that are really important for our kids to develop. And often we fail to make time and space for them to do these things when we're trying to get through the curriculum. I was listening to a great podcast between Mark Brackett, the author of Permission to Feel, and Brene Brown. If you have not listened to it, total plug, it is so good. But one of the things that he said that is really just stood out to me, his kids will say in Yale, right? They're like Ivy League kids who have, worked really hard, high GPAs to get into Yale. And they say, we don't need emotional intelligence to get into Yale. I didn't need this stuff. And he says, well, you're going to need it to get out, because no one's going to hire you with that attitude. They want people who can work well with others, who can, deal with, uncertain times and not freak out when things don't go their way, and be able to, negotiate and have cognitive flexibility. Those are the things that are going to matter. And they're certainly the things that matter for us in our daily lives right now. And so how do we build up those skills for our students, knowing that their world will continue to be, unprecedented, and these things we certainly don't know. So the skills, and this is what we'll talk about in the course, and that's part of the book, is what are the skills and what are the types of learning experiences that will develop those types of learners. And in many ways, when you think about and reflect on your own learning, and when I do this with people all over the country and say, in the world, what types of learning experiences in your own life really resonate with you? And when we talk about them, these themes always come up. No matter what the experience and where it was, there's these central themes of learning was personal. I had choices to do and act in ways that were meaningful to me. I could inquire about problems that I cared about. I got to work with other people. It wasn't an isolating task. It was authentic. There was a reason I was doing it and mattered. There was opportunities for critique and revision. I didn't just get it right on the first try, because that's not learning. Productive struggle. We have to go through and figure it out. There's goals and accountability, and there's reasons that people were held accountable. And then there's models of what it could look like and how to do something, and opportunities for reflection. And when we think about these types of learning experiences, now more than ever, there's an opportunity to really create these with our students. So I have this slide, and my computer's jumping around. But instead of even using the poll everywhere, there's a small group of us here. I would love for you to put in some of your questions in the chat box, just so I make sure that I'm addressing your questions and things that you want to address. But while you're thinking of your question, I also just want to share I'm going to stop sharing this, and I want to share a little bit about the course also. So, exiting my multiple screens, I apologize. So take a few, if you take a minute and share in the chat box some of your questions, and then I'll pull up the course overview so I can make sure to share. There we go. So it could be questions that you want to address around school models of the future. Someone said, not sure which one it was, it might be Patty. We hope that schools go back in the future in September. What I'm hearing time and time again is that we need to be thinking about and preparing for remote models for the next 18 months. Even though that's really hard to acknowledge, I think that's where we have to start thinking, what could that look like? What might we do differently? Great question, Patty. Okay. So as you're thinking about questions, I'm going to go over the course really quickly. We'll add some questions and then we can chat also. So in this course, it was designed almost pre-COVID era, and but it's actually very relevant. But one of the main tenets of this course and one of the main projects is to really understand who you are as a leader and understand your strengths. And then how might we use human-centered design to think about equity, innovation, and leadership. So when we understand these principles and we look at how we can understand and design for equity and the needs of our learners, we'll be looking at a challenge. What challenge are you facing? It could be, yes, what do schools look like in the future? It might be, like Patty said, how do we move teachers from traditional way to learner-centered? We're gonna really investigate problems or challenges that you're facing in your environment, and we're going to go through a human-centered design process to really understand what are the opportunities. And the beauty of this too is in community, we will not only design your own project, but we're going to be learning together with one another. We're going to be reading resources from other innovative leaders to think about how we could inform some of our next steps and deal with our challenges. And then really, how are we going to lead that change? Whether you're a teacher in the classroom, whether you're, have a business and you have an entrepreneurial project that you want to support educators, you're leading a district or a school, from your sphere of influence, how can you actually lead change and do something meaningful? And, as we think about the opportunities, more and more need for entrepreneurship and to think about what could we do differently? What are the resources? How do we meet the needs of all learners when they don't all have devices? They don't all have internet access. Just going through, we knew in a classroom, sitting on a computer all day was not beneficial. So how do we create these meaningful and stimulating experiences with kids and with the community so that they can learn in powerful ways? And there might be opportunities for 2 days a week, or what are the structures if we go back to a blended model where not all kids are in the classroom at the same time, but they might come back, in waves. So that's kind of the overview of the questions we're going to be working on in the class, and the project will really be walking through and the steps of and interviewing, gathering empathy, gathering data, assessing the challenges, and creating a plan, and then getting feedback and prototyping it, try something out, come back and see how it works, and really think about how we can inform next steps. So I am looking at Patty's question. These are great questions, keep adding on. Patty says, how do you get teachers to move from a more traditional way of teaching to a learner-centered model and in a remote environment? The question of the month for sure. I would say prior to remote environment, the best way is to ask teachers to think about who are the kids you're trying to develop. That slide I shared from the World Economic Forum, the skills that are necessary for 2020. When we look at that and we focus on what we want kids to know and do, then we start thinking about, how are my practices aligned? And so that is really helpful. Also having teachers reflect on their own experiences, thinking right now and maximizing this opportunity for teachers to talk about, how did you learn? We're changing everything right now. How are you learning? And what are the things that are standing out to you? Do you like when someone just stands and lectures to you? Is that how you're learning how to change your practices? And many teachers will say, no, I learn when I get in a Zoom call with somebody and we talk through a problem, or someone can show me how to do it. Those things are much more impactful. I like when I am doing something for a purpose. And then if we translate those practices to students, then teachers can see, why those shifts are so relevant. But especially in a remote learning environment, I think there's a huge opportunity to move from one teacher to 30 kids, or one teacher to one class. How might we create teams of teachers? So we have a team of teachers who's the 4th grade team that are creating content and building off each other's strengths. And then we check in with kids in small groups, or we check in mentoring, and really reorganize how we teach and how we align our classrooms. I think we've done the one classroom because that's how our schools were built, but we don't have to do that anymore. And opening up our classrooms and co-teaching and co-learning is always it always shifts practice. I'm co-teaching a course right now with one of my best friends, and I'm learning, and it's stretching me in a lot of ways, especially having to do it online. The other really important thing that's been helpful for me is to ask for feedback. It's hard and it's vulnerable, but at the end of each course, each session, what's working, what's not, interviewing families, interviewing students, and saying, is this working, is it not? Teachers don't like to do things that don't feel good and that don't work. And so if their parents and students are saying they don't like it, then they can be much more inspired to change their practices. And I'm going to leave space too, because I know there's plenty of amazing educators on here. Does anyone else want to add to that an example of how you're getting teachers to shift?
I would say right now for us, we're trying to create a safe space for teachers to feel comfortable taking risks. And our teachers have been fairly traditional in their approaches. So we've tried to meet them where they are. So, okay, you're not comfortable yet with live instruction. Let's start with a video lesson. And let's start with doing live for a classroom meeting. And not so much academic content instruction, and just try and help them make some incremental changes each week to move forward.
I love that. Thanks, Mary.
I would say that one of the nicest things that I've seen is in our we're a JK through 12 independent school. And this week, the lower school was having conferences with their parents. So the resource teachers and all of the assistants are leading all of the classes this week so that the homeroom teachers can have conferences. Mm-hmm. So they really made it as easily, because everyone's just, a little bit on edge around here. So, but I just love the things that the resource teachers have created for like the whole week. Choice boards that I have not seen come out of the lower school yet. And I was like, this is setting a great example so they kind of did it for the week, so that if I'm the PE teacher, I've developed this choice board for my 2nd grade class that I'm working with. And so they get to choose, they have may do's and must do's and things like that. So I've seen some really awesome things come out because they're working collaboratively within a grade level and across grade levels. So I hope that just kind of grows to the middle and upper school.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that is the opportunity too. How do we work in teams and how do you collaborate? That is really, really powerful. And I think it connects to, I'm looking at, and I'll get back to Mary's question, but I'm looking at Eric's just like note that I'm here as working in the industry of sports. And I love that. Welcome, Eric. And how to be more player centered. And so I just love this sense of like, it's the learners, it's human, player centered. I even saw a commercial that keeps resonating with me about cancer. Not a thing that we want to really think about, but in the health industry also, the person talking said, I am part of the team. It's not the teachers who are creating something and giving it to me, that the patient was also part of the team designing the plan. So I think about that in sports, Eric. I think about that in education. How do we make the learners and their families part of this plan? And so what are the goals? There's a lot of discussion around how do we make sure the kids don't lose and create more gaps in their learning. But if it's still a one-size-fits-all lecture, or still a one-size-fits-all worksheet, or program that we're asking kids to do to get through the curriculum remotely, we are going to miss a lot of gaps, and we're going to lose a lot of kids who are disengaged. A shift could be, how do we focus on what those clear goals are? What are the things in these next 4 weeks even that we think are critical for kids to learn? And how do we help learners set goals? Like an example with my kids right now, my kids are in 4th and 5th grade and they're learning a lot of things, but we've said, writing and building the endurance to write and type is something that, to communicate ideas, is something that I'm really, really focusing in on with my kids, because if they can do those things and have the endurance and the fluency with that, they can do a lot of other things. And so making sure that we have time, and that's part of my kids' goals too. They get to decide, what are the things I really want to focus on? What are the must-dos? What are the may-dos? And what are the things that I get to do later on? And then also, what are the things we're deprioritizing? What are the things we're just not going to focus on right now because we just don't have the bandwidth or space, or they're just not that important? So I think, my kids were practicing soccer last night, and they're, but is it juggling? What are the key skills that are really important to develop? And how do I self-assess where I am in relationship to that goal? And then how do we create that plan that really involves the learner so that they're owning it? Because we know that's a key point in motivation and agency, is really being part of that plan. Simple things like, do you want to walk this route or that route? It's like, do you want to go left, right? It's like, it seems so silly, but those are things that when I get my kids to go out and exercise, choice of which way we go actually matter a lot, rather than telling them we're going to take this route. So I just wanted to build on that. And so Mary's question, how do we support teachers as they are building the plane as they fly it, and help them grow comfortable with the chaos of evolving education? Great question. And I think acknowledging that first and foremost has been, really important. I was on a call yesterday with a district leadership team, and they just spent time as principals and like instructional leaders identifying from their core principles, things they believed were important, what's been going well, and what are the challenges. And one of the things they said is teachers are feeling more willing. The pressure is not as intense as it was in the classroom. And so revisiting that over and over again, that whatever you do is great. Here is, the baseline. We're proud of you. We're grateful for the things you're doing for kids. Can help people in this time be more creative. I have seen, unfortunately, people try to put too many rules and structures, like make sure you show up to, hi Keith, make sure you show up to class and wearing the right clothes. Make sure you show up to class and make sure that you're on time. Yes, all those things are important, but how do we celebrate people as they are? How do we acknowledge, and like you said, Mary, meet them where they are? I think, and just acknowledging we don't know how this is going. Being vulnerable as leaders to say, I'm here to learn with you, but there is no right way to do this. And so it's going to take all of us to lean in and do that, rather than making people feel like they aren't measuring up. I think that is something that's really important. I'm going to put Keith on the spot because he just joined us and I know he's got a great answer. Welcome. Mary was just asking one of the questions, how do we support teachers? He's a principal, which is why I think it's really important. He's in the middle of doing this work. How do we support teachers as they're building the plane to help them feel comfortable and just embrace the chaos? Any tips? Oh, we can't hear you, Keith.
I've known my whole life right now, so you'd think I know to turn the microphone on. There's things that we do to celebrate a lot with staff, and we meet every morning for about 20 minutes before before kind of the distance learning connects, opens up for our learners. But it's something we do in face-to-face at school anyway. So we just kind of transfer it over to the space, the Zoom space. But we do Friday, and this is gonna sound stupid, but Friday we have, we're gonna have a beach day. So it's go get your beach chair and your hat and give them enough time to get on Amazon and order stuff, So we do that really often. And then we really utilize the breakout rooms and try and, pose questions that help them have conversations in smaller groups within that. So I think those are some things that we do on a very regular basis, and we've been online now this is our 6th week, and that's one of the things that's really holding our team together. And then I do think it's important to my co-founder and I we do move through classrooms and work with kids and then circle back and talk to advisors about what seems to be working for them, and how is this environment different, and those sorts of things. So I don't know if that's what you were looking for, Katie, but I think those are super important. A little thing, I do this anyway, but I sent every one of my staff members just a card this week on spring break, like a handwritten card in the mail. It says, hey, this is a tough time for everyone. Appreciate you being here, and let's, the kids really need us right now.
Yeah, that's
so
great.
Little things like that right now I think are just really super important. And then there's certain parts of the platform that are actually helping us, because right now I popped in a little late because we're scoring exhibition right now. And when we score them, our advisors that share the same students can now be in there looking at the work together, and that we would have done that face-to-face anyway. But because now they can open a platform and look at the document, that conversation, I think, is in some ways might be better.
That's awesome.
I think that's another kind of benefit of this kind of environment.
Yeah. So I'm hearing, of course, we want to celebrate what people are doing well, right? Just how we started this morning with what are things that are working well. That is so, so important, because we're always, in very, very deficit minded sometimes in education. And so we'll always come with, here's all the things I'm doing wrong. And when we're forced to look at the positives and celebrate that, we go, oh, I'm doing that too, right? So sometimes I love the morning meeting because someone might say, I just checked in with each of my students, and they might not think that's anything to celebrate. And that's huge, right? Just checking with your kids and getting it. That's a great thing to celebrate that many other people can learn from. And so I think even more, my boss often says, in times of crisis, increasing the connectivity and communication. So really more this is a time when we want to over communicate, over share, over appreciate, as much as we can. So even a daily, here's great things that are happening, here's a shout out. Those can't be underestimated. But also tools, quick, easy tools that are practical, that people can use. I keep seeing more and more the principles of remote learning. Build connections with people, make sure they know that they're cared about, keep things simple, focus more on feedback, not on grades. All of those things that we say, yeah, and they'd be great in the classroom face-to-face too, right? So elevating those things that many of our teachers have in their hearts that they've always wanted to do, and giving them the space and opportunity to say, your kids and their relationships are the most important, right? Whether or not you taught this lesson perfectly, or if you had a cute background in your video and all the right props, those things don't matter. But that's the reminder too, Mary. That was a very long-winded answer to your question, but really focusing on what matters. And in my humble opinion, it's not the content as much, or getting through the lesson. It's the learners and their skills. And, if they don't make it through thinking learning is fun and enjoyable and have a good sense of self, none of the other stuff really matters.
Mary, I will tell you, because I'm one of the technology team, I'm on the instructional side, but our, help desk expanded and included all of the instructional people. And I feel like we've been really a good team, and we've been very responsive both to faculty, staff, students, and parents. And I feel like our faculty know that we're there for them, and that they can count on us, so that if they do struggle or have an issue while they're building the plane and flying it, that we're going to be there and we're going to figure it out with them. And I had a teacher yesterday, an art teacher, that was running a 4th grade classroom while the 4th grade teacher's having a conference, and she had trouble. And I saw a help desk ticket actually that came in from a parent, and I jumped into this class. And she goes, "Oh my gosh, you're so fast." And I mean, I don't even know how she knew that I knew anyway. But so we solved that problem yesterday. And today I knew she was going again. And I jumped into the class again. And she goes, "Oh, boys and girls, Mrs. Sinkler's here again." But it was, so I just think that they know that we care and that we're there to help them out no matter what troubles they have, and we'll figure it out and it'll get better the next time.
Yeah.
So I think that's helped our teachers a lot. Because it's not like it's been all smooth sailing. It has not been all smooth sailing, but they're giving it another try and trying again the next day if it doesn't work, and coming up with an idea, and they'll throw it out there and somebody will say, "I'll take this and I'll help this person with that." And it's working.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful to be able to support each other. And also as leaders here too, knowing that you don't have to have all the answers.
No.
Right? I'm pretty sure it's been humbling for so many to actually say, "I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know the end result. Let's come together and figure it out." Can be something that's really powerful too. I want to make space for other questions or thoughts. All right. Well, one of the things, you can ask a question if you, one of the things that Alina asked me is to think about sharing the book and doing a little quick read aloud. So I wanted to read a section. I was reading through it again this morning and kind of thinking, what would be the most relevant? And I was looking at the introduction, and, even though this book was written 2 years ago, it really is about thinking about what a new and better future for our kids could be. And so the first quote that I just want to share is, "To innovate, disrupt your routine." And this, more than anything, has disrupted our routine. And so it's an opportunity now to think about what can we get rid of, instead of, how do we just keep adding more and more? And so in that vein, I'm just going to share a little part from the introduction. So creating an environment where learners are empowered to take risks in pursuit of learning and growth rather than perfection is absolutely foundational to shifting practices, which goes back to the question. To see these changes necessary for equipping our students for their futures, we must empower teachers to make decisions and design experiences that meet their students' needs. I've spent the last 5 years and even more now talking to administrators, schools, districts, and states to see what their needs are to shift practices. And too often their first response is that they have never been asked about their needs or what possibilities they see. I don't see how we change how students learn in school if we don't involve the educators, especially the teachers who are teaching kids every day. These challenges can only be addressed through thoughtful problem solving and collaboration across the boundaries of teachers and administrators. My hope is that this book and our class provides an entry point and examples to ignite conversations between administrators, teachers, and students, and the greater community. If we want schools that develop the successful students who are prepared for our changing world, we all need to have open and honest conversations about the vision, values, culture, and policies that influence what happens in our districts, schools, and classrooms. As we dive in to the need for learner-centered innovation in education, my goal is to push thinking and provide resources and examples to allow you to take steps forward and meet the needs of those you serve, and ultimately ask yourself your colleagues, and your community? What if, and then work together to make it happen. So for those of you who are still with us or who have a chance, if you would just take a moment and think about what is your what if. I know it's really, really big right now, but what is something that you feel that you can tackle and really dive into? What's a what if that that gets you excited about our next steps in education? If you want, go ahead and type it in the chat box, or you can share, whatever works for you. It's a big question. All right, is anyone willing to share? Oh, Eric shared his, thanks. Move from a standardized education to a more personal approach where the person has decision in deciding what, why, and how, and we guide them to found and develop their better version of themselves. Amen. I love it. What if the student is the curriculum? Love it. Thank you, Keith. What we said at the beginning of this, and what I love about this moment in time, given the many challenges, is that we do have an opportunity to make these what ifs actual possibilities in our world. And what gets me motivated and energized every day, and frankly a little scared, is that if we don't do it right now and we don't go back, if we go back to what was, we have, someone said, wasted a crisis, wasted this opportunity. And that scares me. And I don't want to go back to a world where some have said normal, a world where, you know, the inequities that we've seen so transparently continue to persist in our schools. So I love these what ifs. And I am really excited about the opportunity to come together and to think through the opportunities and how we address these challenges as leaders in the community, as teachers, entrepreneurs, leaders in the systems and without. I think there is a great opportunity. What if there were no standardized tests? What if we put back students at the center of the educational decisions? Yes, absolutely. What if we designed a system that was focused on learners and learning and really held that at its core and designed the experiences and the conditions to meet those needs rather than designed for efficiency and standardization? Love it. Just a thought, but I'm pretty sure if we don't have standardized testing this year, I have nothing to back this up except my own thinking. I can't imagine we're going to have it next year. If our kids aren't in school, if our kids aren't, you know, if we're not going back to school in a traditional way for more than 18 months, we probably won't have testing again. And if there's ever a chance to blow up the assessment system and put a new one in place, it's now. And I want to be the one to do it within this thoughtful community instead of the publishing companies and testing companies, because they'll jump in if we don't. All right. Any other final questions Or any other words of wisdom, Alina, that you have to wrap us up? Official business.
Yes. Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to just walk us through learner-centered innovation. We're getting tongue twisted here. And what that looks like, especially now in the crisis that we're dealing with. I know that teachers, really appreciate having an opportunity to hear from an expert like yourself, but also having a forum to where they can share the work that they're doing within their classrooms and their vision for the future. And so we do, definitely appreciate you doing that.
My pleasure. I really do believe that it's going to take all of us together and our collective expertise. And so coming together to learn with and from one another is absolutely foundational.
Definitely. And like you said, we definitely need to take advantage of the opportunity that we have within this situation. Don't take it for granted. It's an opportunity for the teachers to grow, for students to grow, especially dealing with technology and in the virtual space. And so I know that your course will definitely help educators who sign up for it, or, to help them grow in those areas. And so I don't see any more questions coming through, and I know we're coming to the end of our hour, but I do want to go ahead and drop this link in one more time. This is a link to our certificate course, and this does include Dr. Martin's course, Learner-Centered, Learner-Centered, I don't know why I keep me tongue twisted with that. Learner-Centered Innovation, there we go.
Beautiful.
Very nice topic. I know that's been a topic within education for quite some time now, and so we haven't mastered it just yet. Some teachers have, but others are still shifting from the traditional way of teaching to a non-traditional ways. But I think that ed tech tools are great. They help teachers to focus on the student as an individual, providing options for them are great, solutions. But constant communication is key.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Awesome. I will say too, if anyone is interested, it's a shameless plug, but the book right now is $2.99 on Amazon on Kindle, and it's a really good. If anyone wants to join the class, and we are going to be reading the book in the course, but right now I think it's for the next week. It's $2.99, which is so. If you want to jump on that, that's shameless plug.
No, that's great. I'm happy that you shared some of your, information from the book. I typed it in just in case anyone wants to know, but I'm happy that you shared that you will be using that book within your course.
Yep.
And we also next month have a book talk with Dr. Katie Martin, where we'll dive in a little deeper into some of your topics there. So we would like to invite everybody on this webinar to join us then. We'll definitely follow up with all of you.
Yeah. Thank you. And Mary, definitely if you can't share the survey, I'd love to see it. And any way that I can help and get us connected, definitely don't hesitate to reach out.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining us. And we'll be following up with an email and sending you a recording of this webinar.
Great, thanks.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.